Strap in, everyone, because today we are taking a deep dive into the world of hyenas.
Oh, yeah, hyenas.
And I gotta say, getting ready for this, going through the research, Wikipedia, African Wildlife Foundation.
Great sources.
Really interesting stuff. These creatures are way more complex than I think a lot of people realize.
Yeah, I agree.
And definitely more than just the laughing scavenger stereotype, right?
Absolutely, yeah. People hear hyena and they think, oh, scavenger. But, I mean, they're incredible predators. They're integral to the ecosystem.
Totally.
Oh, yeah.
You know what we should probably mention right off the bat? When most people picture a hyena, they're thinking of the spotted hyena.
Right.
But there are actually 3 other species out there. We're going to get into all that.
It's a diverse group.
But I think the thing that really struck me going through these articles was just how powerful these animals are. They've got these incredible adaptations for, we're talking bone crushing.
Oh, absolutely. One of the strongest bite forces in the animal kingdom, I think.
Yeah, and those teeth, it's like they're designed to just extract every little bit of nutrition, even the marrow inside the bones.
And they do. They really do. It's amazing how much they can get out of a carcass that nothing else can touch.
Right, like other predators would just be leaving those scraps behind, but not the hyena.
Right, they've got that niche all to themselves.
Speaking of niches, I found it fascinating how hyenas have evolved over time.
Oh, yeah, they've got a long history.
Millions of years. This article, it said something like 22 million years ago, back in the Miocene epoch.
Wow.
That's when these guys first appeared. And get this, they weren't roaming the African savanna like we might picture them.
No. This is Eurasia we're talking about, and it was a very different place back then. More jungles than grasslands.
Jungles, can you imagine? And these early hyenas, they were more like civets, I guess you could say.
Yeah, smaller, probably more comfortable up in the trees.
Not exactly the bone-crushing behemoths we know today. So, how did we get from those, kind of cute little civet-like creatures to the hyenas we know and love?
Love might be pushing it.
Okay, maybe love is a strong word, but you know what I mean. How did they evolve?
Well, the research suggests that hyenas actually split into 2 main branches pretty early on. You've got your dog-like hyenas and your bone-crushing hyenas.
It's like evolution was experimenting with 2 totally different paths.
It really is. And for a while there, those dog-like hyenas, they were thriving. About 15 million years ago, there were over 30 different species. They even made it over to North America.
Can you believe that?
North America. Wow, their modern relatives never managed that.
Nope, North America remained outside their reach. But yeah, these ancient dog-like hyenas, they were everywhere.
So what happened? Why did most of them disappear?
A combination of factors, really. Climate change played a big role. The planet was changing, their habitats were shrinking.
Makes sense.
And on top of that, they had some pretty stiff competition from a new group of predators on the scene, Canines.
You mean like the ancestors of wolves and dogs?
Exactly. Those guys were quickly rising to prominence, and they probably outcompeted the dog-like hyenas for food and resources.
A double whammy, huh? Climate change and competition. Tough break for the dog-like hyenas. Yeah, most of them couldn't handle the pressure and ended up going extinct. It's the circle of life, I suppose, harsh as it may seem.
Survival of the fittest, as they say.
Exactly.
But wait, you said most of the dog-like hyenas disappeared? So does that mean there are any left?
Well, there's one lone survivor that carries the torch for the dog-like hyenas, the aardwolf.
The aardwolf. Now there's a name I haven't heard in a while.
They're pretty incredible, actually, but we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. We were talking about bone-crushing hyenas.
Oh, right. So while those dog-like hyenas were struggling, the bone crushers were just getting started, huh?
Exactly. They found their niche as the ultimate cleanup crew, feasting on those massive herbivore carcasses that other predators left behind. No waste in nature, right?
It's like they looked around and said, nobody wants this giant pile of bones.
Yeah.
More for us.
That's one way to put it. And let me tell you, some of those bone-crushing hyenas were absolute giants. Like Pachyrhynchus, for instance.
What? Okay, you're going to have to break that one down for me.
Pachyrhynchus. Imagine a hyena, but twice the size of a spotted hyena. We're talking over 400 pounds. These guys were massive.
Whoa, 400 pounds is bigger than a lion.
They were huge. And their teeth, forget about it. They could crack open the bones of elephants like they were peanuts.
Okay, officially adding Pachyrhynchus to my do not encounter list. That's just terrifying.
They were something else. But even with these giants around, it was the spotted hyena that ultimately rose to become one of Africa's most successful predators.
Which honestly is pretty impressive when you think about it.
Yeah.
How did they manage to compete with these bone-crushing behemoths?
Well, they had to get creative. Instead of relying solely on brute strength, spotted hyenas evolved these complex social behaviors and incredible pack hunting strategies.
So they weren't just scavengers anymore.
Nope, they became formidable hunters in their own right, and those social structures, fascinating stuff. We'll get into that
Oh,
later.
we definitely have to. But first, I'm curious, what do these articles say about how hyenas and humans have interacted throughout history? Because I know there are a lot of stories and myths surrounding these animals.
Oh, absolutely. Hyenas have captivated our imaginations and, let's be honest, fueled our fears for centuries.
It's no wonder, right? With those powerful jaws and scavenging habits, they probably left quite an impression on our ancestors.
For sure. And they found some pretty interesting evidence of these ancient interactions, too. Did you know that they've discovered fossilized hyena dung containing human hair? We're talking about interactions that go way back.
Oh, really? Fossilized hyena poop with human hair? That's both amazing and a little bit disturbing.
Right. It really makes you think about those early encounters between our two species. And those interactions, particularly the scavenging on human remains, probably played a big role in shaping the myths and folklore that surround hyenas.
Yeah, myths about witchcraft, shape-shifting, grave robbing. It's like hyenas became this blank canvas for some of humanity's wildest stories.
And let's be real, some of those stories paint hyenas in a pretty negative light, to say the least.
Yeah, the whole man-eater reputation comes to mind. But how much of that is rooted in reality? That's what I'm really curious about. So are hyenas really man-eaters, or is that just, a scary story?
Well, from what I gather in these articles, actual hyena attacks on humans are actually pretty rare, especially these days.
Okay, so not exactly lurking in the shadows waiting to snatch us up.
Not quite, no, but there is a bit of a caveat here. The articles did mention that these attacks might be underreported.
Underreported? How so?
Well, for one thing, there are places where people might not want to report these incidents. Maybe fear of, retaliation or just a lack of trust in the authorities.
That makes sense, especially in more remote areas.
Exactly. And then there's the fact that it can be hard to track these things accurately. I mean, if someone is attacked in a remote area, there might not be anyone around to report it, or the evidence might be gone by the time anyone investigates.
So it's kind of a hidden danger, in a way.
You could say that. But look, it's important to remember that these attacks are still statistically rare, especially compared to other predators. But the articles did highlight some factors that can increase the risk.
Like what? When are these attacks most likely to occur?
Well, it seems like spotted hyenas are usually the culprits, for one.
Not surprising, considering they're the most social and often the biggest and strongest.
Right. And the articles pointed out that attacks are more likely to happen during times of hardship, like droughts, when their usual prey is scarce.
Makes sense, they're desperate for food, so they might take more risks.
Exactly. They might be more likely to venture into human settlements looking for an easy meal. And sadly, there have been some tragic cases. One article mentioned a case in Malawi where a pair of hyenas, each weighing over 150 pounds, actually killed 27 people.
Wow, 150 pounds each. That's massive.
They were huge. It really highlights the potential danger, even if those cases are extremely rare.
Yeah, definitely not something to take lightly. But on a slightly less intense note, I found it interesting that the articles also mention how hyenas aren't just creatures to be feared. In some cultures, they're actually used for food and medicine.
It's true, the line between fear and reverence can be pretty thin, can't it? The articles talked about how some cultures value hyena meat as a source of protein, while others use different body parts in traditional medicine.
Really? Like what kind of medicinal purposes?
Oh, all sorts of things. Some believe hyena fat can treat rheumatism, while others use hyena fur for protection or good luck. There's even a belief that certain hyena parts can enhance, let's say, romantic prowess.
Really? Hyena love potions, that's a new one.
Hey, I'm just reporting what's out there. But it just goes to show you the relationship between humans and hyenas is far more nuanced than just predator and prey. These animals have played a significant role in human cultures for a very long time, both as sources of fear and fascination.
That's a really good point. We often forget that our interactions with the natural world go far beyond just the physical. There's a whole cultural and historical dimension to consider as well.
Absolutely. And speaking of history, it's amazing to think about how long hyenas have been around. Remember, they originated in the jungles of Eurasia millions of years ago.
Oh yeah, it's wild to imagine these creatures so closely associated with the African savanna today, starting their journey in a completely different environment.
And the variety of forms they evolved into. talked about the dog-like hyenas and the bone crushers, but there were so many variations in between. It's like evolution was running a giant experiment with these creatures, seeing what worked and what didn't.
And talk about a successful experiment. They've survived climate change, competition, even the expansion of our own species.
Talk about resilience. But that's hyenas for you. They're survivors.
Survival of the fittest, hyena style.
Exactly.
You know, we've covered a lot of ground here, from their evolution to their diet, but we can't forget about their iconic vocalizations. These articles made it clear hyenas are a noisy bunch.
They're definitely not known for being quiet. And no conversation about hyenas would be complete without mentioning that famous laugh.
Oh, you mean that kind of high-pitched, almost eerie sound they make? I've always found it a bit unnerving.
Yeah, it's pretty distinctive, and the spotted hyena in particular, they've got a whole vocabulary of whoops, grunts, and groans. It's quite impressive, actually.
It's funny, though, I always assumed that laugh meant they were, actually amused by something.
It's a common misconception, but it's actually far from the truth. That laugh, or giggle, it's not really laughter in the human sense, it's more of a communication tool.
So what are they communicating with all that racket?
All sorts of things. It can be used to signal their location to other members of their clan, especially during a hunt. Or it can be a sign of excitement, frustration, even fear. One article I read described it as a way of talking to each other.
It's like their own personal social media platform, broadcasting their every move and emotion.
That's a great way to put it. And speaking of clans, we can't talk about hyenas without delving into their fascinating social structures. These guys don't mess around when it comes to social hierarchy.
Yeah, I was reading about that. They live in these well-defined clans, sometimes up to 80 individuals strong. And it's the females who rule the roost, right?
You got it. The articles were pretty clear about that. Female spotted hyenas, they're larger than males, more aggressive, and they call all the shots. We're talking about a true matriarchy in the animal kingdom.
Girl power. I love it.
Yeah.
So what's the deal with the males then? What's their role in all of this?
Well, it seems their main focus is on maintaining their status within the clan. They're constantly competing with each other for dominance, which often involves, let's say, some pretty intense displays of aggression.
So not exactly the most hands-on fathers then.
Not really. The articles suggest that males play a very limited role in raising their cubs. That's mostly left to the females.
Interesting. It's like they've got their own social system completely figured out.
And it clearly works for them. They've been thriving for millions of years.
Speaking of thriving, we talked about their scavenging habits, but those articles also made it clear that hyenas are expert hunters in their own right.
Oh, absolutely. They're incredibly efficient predators working together to take down prey much larger than themselves.
I was amazed by the descriptions of their hunting strategies, like how they'll chase their prey for miles, wearing it down until it collapses from exhaustion.
They're incredibly persistent, and when they finally catch their prey, well, let's just say those bone-crushing jaws come in handy. The articles talked about how spotted hyenas can disembowel a wildebeest in a matter of minutes.
Talk about a gruesome but effective tactic.
It's nature in all its raw and sometimes unsettling glory.
I guess so. But even with all this talk of hunting, scavenging still plays a key role in their lives, doesn't it?
Absolutely. They're opportunistic eaters, and they won't turn down a free meal if they can get it. Plus, by scavenging those carcasses, they're actually providing a vital service to the ecosystem, cleaning up the savanna and preventing the spread of disease.
So they're like nature's cleanup crew.
Exactly. They might have a bit of a PR problem, but hyenas are essential to maintaining a healthy balance in their environment.
That's a great point. And it just goes to show you there's always more to these creatures than meets the eye. But even with all we've learned about hyenas, there's still so much we don't know.
Oh, absolutely. There are still plenty of mysteries to unravel and questions to answer when it comes to these fascinating creatures.
Which brings us to our final thought-provoking point. Our sources focus mainly on Africa and Eurasia, but one hyena species actually made it to North America millions of years ago, Chasmoporthetes, the so-called running hyena.
Chasmoporthetes, fascinating creature. Imagine a hyena built more like a cheetah, all sleek and speedy.
Now that's a mental image, but sadly they didn't survive, which got me thinking, what if they had? What if Chasmoporthetes had never gone extinct? It's really capturing my imagination here. Picture this, North America, but instead of wolves chasing bison, we've got packs of these cheetah-like hyenas zipping across the plains. How wild is that?
Seriously, talk about a plot twist. It could have been a completely different ecosystem. Would they have gone after the pronghorn, do you think? Those are some fast animals.
Oh, for sure. Imagine them locked in an epic evolutionary race, pronghorn versus running hyena. Who would win?
Oh, no, that's a tough one. But think about the stories, right? The myths, the legends. Native American folklore could have a whole different cast of characters with chasmoporthides in the mix.
Oh, 100%. Instead of howling coyotes at night, maybe it's those eerie hyena calls echoing through the canyons. Talk about spooky.
Right. And who knows, maybe they'd even be roaming parts of South America, too. They crossed continents once. Who's to say they wouldn't do it again?
You know what? You're blowing my mind a little bit here, and it makes you wonder, if chasmoporthides had survived in North America, would our whole perception of hyenas be different today?
It's a real possibility. I mean, think about it. Instead of those classic African savanna documentaries, we could be watching nature shows about these sleek, speedy predators thriving in the American West.
It's crazy to think about. Instead of being seen as, well, let's be honest, kind of scary scavengers, maybe they'd be these symbols of speed and agility.
Right, like the cheetahs of North America. And who knows, maybe that different public image could even have helped with their conservation efforts in other parts of the world.
That's a really interesting point. It just goes to show you how interconnected everything is, right? The twists and turns of evolution, the impact on ecosystems, even how we perceive these animals is all connected.
Totally. It makes you appreciate the power of a good what if, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap things up for our hyena deep dive. What a journey.
It really was. And to think, we started with just a couple articles.
That's the beauty of a deep dive, though, right?
Yeah.
You never know where it's going to lead. So, until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never underestimate the power of curiosity.